Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 30 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, who remembers the North along with all of its forgotten family. Joining me this fine recording session are one Stephen Howard.
Drinker of the Kool-Aid at the Frey's Palace.
Amanda Howard.
I'm sitting in the forest singing when Arya Stark walks up.
You and Ed Sheeran. And one Nick Castillo.
Leave one wolf alive and the sheep are never safe.
And last but never ever least, the one Gary Delaney.
If season 7 and 8 were a movie, this episode would be the Fellowship of the Rings. It's just a whole lot of leading up to better episodes.
What? Did you just diss the Fellowship of the Ring?
Hold on, I want to give him props for throwing a Lord of the Rings reference out there first, because he's pretty down usually on the Lord of the Rings, so I'll take it as a win.
I don't even know how to equate that in my head without hurting my head.
There's just so much setup in this fucking episode, but nothing really actually important really happens in this episode. Like, you meet some characters, there's some bad acting, and we move forward.
Some important stuff happened in the freaking first Lord of the Rings.
Gary, what was the title of this episode? What was the title of this episode?
10 minutes. Literally 10 minutes of the Fellowship of the Rings that were important.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
This is how he wins. Don't engage. This is how he wins.
We're not a Lord of the Rings podcast yet.
So I'm thinking we should have a Lord of the Rings here.
Anyway, I still win. I still got my hot take that got under people's skin, so...
All right, so as we've kind of mentioned here, we are now into season 7 of Game of Thrones, and we are watching episode 1, Dragonstone. Jon organizes the North's defenses. Cersei tries to even the odds. Daenerys comes home. Arya reminds the Freys the North remembers. Sam adopts to life in Old Town, and the Night King makes his way south. Are you holding up a finger already, Stephen?
I am. I want to start it off.
Oh,
I want to start it off with the very first thing that happens in this show before the credits even roll. It is I think I've said before, I'm not excuse me. I'm not like hugely entranced with Arya, not to the extent that everyone else is. But it's a really cool scene. You just have Walder Frey up with all the other Freys having a Frey old time. And they all, cheers, drink, and then they all die. And I have like 2 thoughts on that. One, holy crap, that's one heck of a way to get back at the Freys. Number 2, how haunted is that damn castle at this point in time? I'm just saying. Gary.
I was on that same scene. I was wondering, how many times did Arya practice her very, very sassy line? Like, if anyone asks what happens here, tell them the winter came for House Frey. And it's like, she had to think of that. That was like a very poignant line. Also, the fact that she, in perfect character with Walder Frey, says, "Hey, wife, you don't get to effing drink my wine.
Not wasting wine on you." Yeah, same. Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed.
Very much in character, which is proof that she's really gotten that skill of being in character. There's some small slips that I think the actor who plays Walder Frey tried to be a little bit off his normal game to be Arya, but still 100% on his game. Yeah, Nick.
I thought I thought that the same, watching that particular scene, I thought it was really interesting when she turned to him, actually, since you bring that up. I thought he was saving the wine, not because he didn't want the missus to take it, but he didn't want her to befall the same fate. That's how I read it. Because she knew that all the wine was poisoned.
No, that's what it's supposed to.
That's what he was saying, too.
No. She has to be a messenger. She's only not given wine so that she can be the messenger.
None of the women are given wine. If you look at the end, as she walks out, there's 3 women standing there.
So you think it's a sexist thing? Do you think Arya can't kill women?
No, I
engage,
think that.
Don't engage.
No. I
figured the women didn't kill her family.
Yes,
Exactly. He wanted to get after the phrase, kill the bloodline. No, I really thought that the line was so poignant, and I wrote down that it really levels the playing field when you see how powerful some of these characters are making their return to Westeros. I have an analogy later on too when you see Dany, arrives in Dragonstone, and some of these other characters make their way back to Westeros. We've got Cersei and the Freys, and we kind of talked about how faltering Walder Frey is. But there's some major players that when they make their way back, really show how dangerous some of these characters are and how cold and calculated Arya can be. She barely lifts a finger. Probably just slipped something into the ale and had everybody drink it, and boom, they're all gone.
I was going to mention here, they even talk about that at the end of the episode. So going forward, season 7 and season 8, I'm going to watch the after episode part where the two showrunners sit down and talk about their thoughts about the episode, just to torture myself a little bit more.
Boo.
But they even talk about how the actor for Walder Frey tried to add in some slip-ups and stuff like that to his not normal mannerisms to kind of make it seem like something was slightly off with him too. But yeah, Nick, it's you do point out a really good thing. It's interesting to see how powerful the Arya has become when she comes back to Westeros. I wonder how much that's going to carry over into the future. Amanda?
I just thought there was another thing is when she was disguised as Walder Frey, she specifically said she had gathered every Frey that means a damn thing. So I thought maybe she'd spent her time figuring out which Freys had done the bad, the crimes. Go ahead, Nick.
Back to my earlier point that when we're talking about Walder Frey before we lose it, is that this actor, phenomenal. Some of the other acting in this episode, pretty weak. I think this, since we lost the hero of the revolution, acting skills and Joffrey have gone downhill greatly. There's when you have those sort of players in the show, you have real strong acting, and that kind of covers up for the weak acting. And everyone who's worth a damn at acting in the show dies.
I just love that all of us are shaking our heads while you say your newest hot take, and we're all literally just
conspiracy theory. Sorry, conspiracy theory number 1. All good actors in this show die early. Nick.
Oh, shout out to Jon Snow.
Ouch. So
already
I guess
died.
That means
he already died once.
That poor guy in episode 1 of the Night's Watch that died first. Is he was the best actor?
Best actor that exists in the whole show.
Gary's hot take.
Okay,
good.
Before Gary can continue with it, I do want to say the ghosts in the castle thing was supposed to be my conspiracy theory, and that was supposed to be my conspiracy theory number 1, and I am offended that Gary took it.
Are you really, though?
I am. I am upset. Apoplectic, some might say.
All right.
I don't know what that means. I don't know why you're saying you're anorexic. Anyway, Nick's okay. Done. I made a take so hot that Nick has no retort.
That you left him speechless.
I left him speechless. Anyway, this was Steven's point, so we'll circle back to him. What else? Do you have anything else?
I just wanted to bring that up before we started up on anything, just because that was the first thing I wanted to talk about before we got into anything else.
So I was going to bring up here a minor point that Old Town shows up in the intro for the first time, which is interesting to see, a place we haven't seen. I mean, we saw it at the end of last season there of Sam being in Old Town, but this is really the first time we've actually been in Old Town proper there.
Is that the pyramid or what? I saw some stuff in the opening that I didn't recognize.
Yeah, the giant lighthouse looking thing.
Okay.
Lighthouse.
Yeah. Then another minor scene really to talk about too is the winter storm. It's the very first scene of the episode, that oncoming winter storm and the dead marching in there. it's kind of a weird throwaway scene. It's almost like a reminder, though, of like to the audience of like, hey, these guys are still out there, and hey, look at the size of the army they have, and hey, they have
And they
dead
have
giants. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Gary,
Conspiracy theory number 1.1. Those are the second best actors in the show, the White Walkers.
I am keeping track of the number of conspiracy theories we have this episode.
There's a sub conspiracy theory.
Sub-conspiracy
Nope,
theory.
it counted as a second one. We've got two
Oh,
now.
okay.
Has a lot
Also,
of
I was
them.
gonna ask before we get too far. Was there some other changes in the opening? I saw the twins is in the opening.
yep,
I don't think the twins has ever been in the opening other than this one.
they were
Uh-huh.
in I think like season 1 and a little bit at the end of
Think so.
6 there possibly.
But I was trying to really dig into the twins to see if there was any like, you know, when Winterfell was burned, that was kind of shown on the map, but the twins still had the two towers, the Freys on the map. So I guess it's supposed to imply that the Freys in some form or fashion still are the lords of the twins.
Or attention to detail is not the strong point there of the cold opening introduction.
I mean, technically, the Cersei is the queen of the land, so
Well,
a house
been-
being run by a lady.
Gary,
we won't be
It's-
I'm afraid to say that the Freys are all dead.
Ooh.
also,
No,
also,
they're not. You said the lady Freys didn't die.
also, Gary,
Technically, there's his last wife is the lady of the castle because she's
Well,
the
there
last.
There was hundreds of them. I'm sure there's a grandkid somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say like that's a real big house to try to murder. Anyway. back to you.
also to the Baratheon sigil is still on King's Landing. I don't think it's
Ooh,
ever
yes,
really
I did
switched
notice
to
that.
the Lannister symbol.
And I did see that,
Ooh.
and yet while the Baratheon sigil was on the opening, I did notice that Cersei now has the Lannister lion up in the throne room
Yep.
instead of the 7-pointed star that Joffrey had.
Nice.
Also, to kind of following up to the opening of the Winter Storm and the White Walkers kind of walking there, you start to notice a change in Bran. He's definitely not talking like he did at the end of season 6 there. He is starting to be more cold and monotone talking. Gary again.
Someone told me he actually has a major part to play, and they got him acting lessons. Conspiracy theory number 3.
Oh,
What? Is that a real thing?
I'm guessing, like, if you think about how good his Brandon's acting has been, I feel like for the second half of the show when he came back, I think he maybe like got some acting lessons, like between last season and this season. I just feel like not only is it I think it's played a little more seriousness and.
He's
More.
playing it with a more monotone, less human-like.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that I agree with Tyler on this. I think. Oh, I'm sorry. I stole your point there. Go for it.
Whose point did you steal there?
Nick. Oh, I thought I saw you with 2 fingers up.
I did. You're fine. You go.
Okay, so I think that he is I think this is supposed to be showing that he is turning from human into the three-eyed raven in a more real way. He's not this kid that he's supposed to be. He's not talkative. He's not, like what Tyler said, human. He is now something else. I will say I wish that this hadn't happened off screen in between seasons, but take what we can get, I guess.
I'll withdraw my conspiracy theory. I guess there could be some character building elements, but I do feel as if there's a very tonal shift in the way that character is played.
Entirely agree.
Nick, what do you got?
I was gonna say, one, his acting wouldn't have been gotten better because he's survived this long, Gary. You're undercutting your own conspiracy theories.
Your own conspiracy theory is bunk.
But he's dead,
Bunk.
and now he's the Black Raven or whatever. So he's a new man. He's the Jon Snow of the Tree People.
Goodness sakes. I also had down, the nuances there when he shows up at the wall, like how he's able to cut right to who Ed is. And I was curious if like he can look at you and tell what your backstory is, or if he's been like just jumping between histories, seeing everything, and he knows who Ed is because he's seen what's happened at the Fist of the First Men. But I thought that was really interesting how he looks at Ed, and in that same monotone, like we're talking about, is able to point out who Ed is, where he's been, the horrors he's seen. So that was really interesting. Yeah.
I took it as him just under the weight of all of these visions. If he's been diving into these nonstop, how many lifetimes has he been living through in just the last short period of time? But
Mhm.
that's how I assumed that's how he knew why he was lack of emotion. Now he's seen too much.
Sure.
I don't know how his little power works because it's vastly different from what's described in the books. So I don't know the limits of it.
Can I
His
real quick interject?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Can you just describe what the power is in the books?
In the books, he can see the memories of the trees oh god, why my word just blinked.
Or would.
Of the
The Ents? That's a Lord of the Rings thing.
that is a Lord of the Rings thing.
Not
Of the heart
march
trees.
of the Ents.
Of the heart trees, the ones with the red leaves and the white trunks and the faces.
The werewolves.
Godswood?
The werewoods, thanks you. I couldn't think of the word. Werewoods, yeah. So he can see the memories of like those trees, which is why he can't see them past a certain point because the trees in the south were cut down. So he can't see these places. Like that was always the biggest thing I remember leading up to our revelation of Jon Snow, because there was no werewoods that far south for him to possibly have gotten this vision,
Interesting.
according to the books. So we'll see what this magical power leads us to.
Is it possible that Bran's vision is limited to things the White Walkers were at? Because the White Walker were at the first of the Fist Man where he ran into, and I can't remember what the other memories or items he mentioned were, but
Well,
I thought they were very...
The White Walkers weren't there when Jon Snow was born.
Oh, it's true.
So
I
that
don't-
would, I think like many other things, this may not have had enough thought put into it.
Not a fully developed
No.
internal logic to the fantasy.
No.
No, never.
And the fact that they don't even play by their own rules of the story, they just rewrite them.
Rules are made to be broken.
All right. So the question I wanted to start the group off with was, moving on to my favorite character, Mr. Jon Snow, presiding over court of all the Northern Lords there. And the discussion comes up about giving the castles, like the defense of the North, and then also giving the castles to different families because the Umbers and the Karstarks rebelled against the Starks there. Carl Stark, yes, and his lovely family. Sansa starts an argument with Jon saying that the families should lose their castle because they rebelled against the Starks. Jon says no, they shouldn't, because not all children should be held to their parents' mistakes and everything like that. So my question to the group here is, was Jon right in what he did there? I don't know how he keeps doing it, but Gary, go ahead.
I think a lot of Jon's belief in not taking something away from somebody based on their parentage is the fact that he lived most of his life as a bastard. Like, so he's had to wear the shame of who his parents were, or his parentage, and they wasn't for. And I think maybe he has some sympathy for these other houses, the Kastaks, that, he's maybe assuming that because being a bastard kind of enriched his honor, that maybe this honor of giving these houses back to the families, giving them to them, it was a decision that maybe that'll be written in their histories, and it will be one more piece of the legend that is the bastard of the Starks. Like, I don't know. That's my thoughts. Nick?
That's really interesting. I like that thought, Gary. That he's had to wear who he is and his family as something of shame, and that the other families may have to do that too. I also like this scene. It showed that John and Sansa's very visible differences in opinions, and I highlighted it from the Sansa side. She's been hurt. Like she wants vengeance for people who wronged her. What I really highlighted in this. I think John ultimately made the right choice. I would go with uniting people because you need all the families together. But I think Sansa really is looking to hurt and shame the people that left her exposed, as it were. My take.
To compound onto Gary and Nick's point a bit, there is actually one statement made by John in here. The crimes of the parent should, or the crimes of the father should not be held to the son, or something to that extent. I can't, it's not verbatim, but he is very much, I'm sympathizing with these children and thinking it's not their fault that their father was a jerk or whatever you want to say. That said, I think that the dictates of war mean that John made the right decision. I think in any other time, Sansa would have had the better position. And I believe that's because there's an expediency right now that they need. They need these forts manned. They need all the people that they can under the same banner. And they need the army of the living to stand as one. If this is any other time, this is the perfect time to show the other families, if you rise up against us, yeah, throw them out and give their castle to someone loyal to you. That's a very easy thing to do, but it's not for this time. And so I think that Sansa has a normally correct point, but for this time, Jon has the correct point.
I actually thought that was a pretty good point that Gary made. I hadn't thought about that the way that John's upbringing would have made that pretty unique. I liked John's decision in this. I thought it was a good way of handling it. I did think it was interesting because I don't know if Sansa honestly believes they should be punished or if she is looking for her. I could see a bit of both possibly, but I do think it's funny that they had just had the conversation about like we need to trust each other and like make these decisions together, and then John immediately went off and didn't do that. While I agree with him, I don't think it was the smartest thing to handle the best way. I don't think there was an easy decision to do with this because the books and the movies are full of examples of where they did the honorable thing or they did the pragmatic thing and ways that it both worked and backfired in both examples. So I thought that John made a good choice here, but I do admit that it's not an easy one. I can't tell who's next. Nick.
I had that same point. You took the word. I was just thinking of two to add on to that. John made the pragmatic, the logical response choice versus the emotional one that Sansa did. Yeah, it makes far more sense to unite everybody together. I had the continuation of their disagreement or their argument on the parapets when they go outside too. So if we wanted to wait to talk about that, or if you want to transition to this, okay. I thought that same argument you brought up too about how they said trust each other. Like he said, not in front of the other lords. You know, if I'm meant to be king, you have to, kowtow to some extent to what I'm saying. And how she said, would it be so? I wrote down, would it be so bad? Would that be so terrible if you listened to what I said? Because she does know what she's talking about to an extent as well. And I highlighted again how our group here has mentioned several times how important it is to have the right counselors around you. I thought that was pointed.
I'll 100% agree with you, Nick, that at this point, this scene really blends into what we're talking about right here. I feel Sansa somewhat sometimes, and maybe this is just kind of how she comes across in the show from her. She comes across more of like, you should listen to me, but I don't have like anything to give you for why you should listen to me right now. She comes across just kind of, dismissive just for the being dismissive there. Yes, she's dealt with a lot in her life, but how she can't provide anything to turn that into useful stuff at this moment. Like she talks about Cersei will never let them live or whatever as long as she's queen down there. It's like, well, yeah, but right now there's 1,000 miles between them and Cersei here, and they have a bigger problem to the north. But I also too like the point that she makes at the end with John and talking about counsel. There is you have to be better than dad or father and Rob, and we're talking about this logical versus emotional part there. They did a lot of the, I want to probably say, logical reasoning behind it of like, trusting under house or under roof care for Rob, or father Ned there basically saying the logical thing was giving Cersei the out to get out of town before he tells Rob that his children are not really his. And both instances, those turned out very poorly for them. So John has to be better than that. Gary.
Before I make my point, I want to point out I think I got an agree with from Nick, Steven, and Amanda on my previous point.
I
Just
didn't
feel
agree with
dirty
you.
on the ends.
I didn't agree with you.
Okay, Nick and Amanda. Okay, I'll give Steven a one-time pass.
Okay, fair enough.
But I would say that you guys are talking about the Carl Stocks, and I've already forgotten the name of the other house. I'm going to make a challenge, and this is not even remembering if they're ever referenced again. I think this is the last reference we have to these two houses from now until the last credit. So these are irrelevant decisions that will have no impact on anything in the show.
They're irrelevant to what we see in the show, but that's not irrelevant to the decision
They're
being
relevant
made.
to character building in the story as well.
Yeah.
They're just irrelevant to conflict. They just needed to make some conflict.
I did want to agree with Tyler that I think Sansa has a wisdom without being particularly wise, and it's weird that she has these underlying moments of, hey, yeah, you need to be better than father, you need to be better than Rob, but she doesn't. She just advocated for basically being worse than both of them, or at best the same as both of them. So it's like I say, she has a kind of a wisdom without actually being able to practice it or to show it. And so it's like almost good to kind of hear her, but maybe not to take her actual advice, maybe to listen to more what she is, I don't know, trying to impart
in the spirit of her goals.
Exactly.
I would be interested to see if that was just the show trying to show that she's still learning or developing in this world, or if it's kind of, I think I mentioned last time the theory that a lot of strong female characters are written as just sounding very like knowing and knowledgeable, even though they're not actually committing anything, actually offering anything to the table.
I think a lot of it is, do the ends justify the means? And yeah, I agree with it at all. I think that Sansa wants to come off with a place of knowledge. She does have experiences to draw from. How to posit those in a positive way, she has no idea. She's just referencing them, and it sounds like she's coming off as brutish or angsty, undercutting John after everybody just says he's king in the north. You would never see Catelyn Stark say anything in the middle of Ned Stark talking. Even though she does have his ear behind him, it's not the place for it, right or wrong. That's just not the culture. So yeah, I think that the way that it's handled, she may get there, but for right now, she's got information that is beneficial for the group. How she relays it to John and how she brings it forward be handled a little better around the edges.
Catelyn Stark would have been horrified to see this.
Right, yeah. My daughter. Clutch my pearls.
But not Rob. John in command as the.
That's what I was thinking.
Cool.
Like,
that too, yeah.
Horrified to see this, and it makes me smile.
The one child that she was never ever willing to make her own.
As if there's ever an excuse for treating a child like that.
And I would say too, Nick.
What if they're super ugly?
Okay, ignoring Gary there.
Gary, you did fine.
Fair enough.
I was gonna say, Nick, not in Sansa trying to communicate not in a positive manner, but in more of an effective manner is her issue right now.
Yes.
But yeah, so that kind of does away with my first point. I'm just going to end it with fuck Littlefinger. That's going to be my new thing going forward since Alistair Thorne is dead. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Nick, you and I had quite a lively debate all the
Yeah,
time whenever
we
we
did.
were talking about Littlefinger there around this point in time of the show.
Partly because I was trying to get your goat, but also because he's just smarmy. He's just sitting in the corner smirking over at Sansa. You know, Sansa has a couple one-liners. Is like, I wonder why he's still here. What does he want? And Sansa's like, I know exactly what he wants. You know, and he's just like sitting in the corner when they argue in front of the council. He's sitting over there smiling at her like, it's not going so well, is it, Sansa? Just yeah, he's a tool.
All right. I am going to throw it over to Steven, though. Did you have any more questions you wanted to go about for the episode?
I do. I guess I'll start with, and I'm sure we'll want to expand this to from where I'm going, but there's a scene where, assumedly, Cersei has commissioned a painting of the Westeros in the little building area that she has, and there's a big conversation happening around that. The first thing I noticed, though, was the scope of that painting, and I'm assuming she's commissioned this painting. That is where she believes that her realm begins and ends right at the wall. There is no thought in her mind that it goes above the wall, and I thought that was very poignant because there is so much land above the wall, and she's not interested in it even slightly. But a second thing on that, and this is where we can expand from. I was blown away again. I had forgotten her comments on Tommen. They are talking about what type of dynasty is going to be, because they're going to be a dynasty for 1,000 years. Our children are dead. It'll be a dynasty of us. And then what about Tommen and blah blah blah. And she says specifically, Tommen betrayed us. Tommen betrayed me. And I'm just like, whoa, bro, your kid just walked out a window. Maybe now's not the time. But it's I think it. I don't know. Do you think it's her trying to just deal with it and put it off and trying to make it not as relevant to her? Or do you think she, honest to God, believes Tommen betrayed the family? This is kind of just what happens. It's sad, but we move on. Tyler.
So to jump back a little bit to your picture on the map, and I don't know if Nick, you're going to talk about this or not, because I remember distinctly when you and I were again discussing this show as it was airing, there was a lot of stuff kind of relevant to the map itself and where Jaime and where Cersei stood on the map in relation to one another there. And this all ties back to the Maggie the Frog theory we got from way back in season 5 there, that flashback there. Because it always left out the one part that from the books that was valuable from the books of, and I don't remember exactly how it translated, but it was the younger brother the younger sibling will be your downfall. And that's why Cersei for years and years and years hated Tyrion, because Tyrion was the younger sibling in that relationship there. But also, too, Jaime is younger than Cersei by a few seconds there because he came out after her. And then the point I'm trying to now get to is going by where they were standing on the map there, and I think that was at this time, Nick, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Cersei is standing on Westeros in the neck region there. It's basically the land between the north and the south, right?
She's walked a little bit up to the top corner, right before they have this interchange about Tommen. Yeah, she walks up and she's standing up towards the top of the Riverlands at the neck, the thinner part of Westeros.
And then Jaime moves and is standing now on the fingers. So it's kind of symbolizing like the fingers around the neck of like Jaime would be the one to eventually kill Cersei, which is what was theorized in there, because then that fulfills the prophecy of the younger sibling kills her. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there too. And
oh my gosh, I didn't notice this at all.
Neither did I.
I'd forgotten part of that, but now you.
I'm
talked
gonna
about it, I
assume this
really-
is bullshit internet talk, but I can try to
We did have
rewatch
a deep
it.
discussion about it. Somebody had pointed it out. I don't think it was. I don't remember it was us, but like when you look at it, you could definitely see it, and there was a lot of nuance in their interaction there. I had written down where Jamie says, "Should I be scared of you?" Well, like she's kind of losing her grip on reality, and maybe he does eventually see her as enough of a threat that he needs to just take her out. Yeah, he comes in and points off the eastern coast, like where will Danny land? And he walks down and points to Dragonstone. So he's north of Dragonstone, off to the east, at the fingers. He highlights that for where his enemies are located, and she's just kind of standing there. And then he walks across in front of her, going west, and points the enemies over in Highgarden. So then he walks over there. So he's down on that area, and she's north. So she's up in like the by the Frey's twins' castle, by the throat. So it kind of shows that the neck is there, and he's the fingers surrounding her almost. That conspiracy theory.
Yes. Yeah, so that was what I kind of wanted to talk about. I will now cede my time to, I think, Nick, were you next in that grouping?
Was I think.
Go for it.
Excellent points. I'd forgotten that little nuance, but yeah, I highlighted that Cersei's losing her grip on reality. I think she feels emboldened by her ability to survive her trial of the Seven, and the Tyrells are all but wiped out with Lady Olenna retreating to Highgarden. She's just like you highlighted, Stephen. We're gonna build a dynasty. Nothing can touch us. We're undefeated. And Jamie knows how dangerous the precarious the situation is, and he talks about how we're screwed. Jamie says, all these things talking about I'm queen of the 7 kingdoms, and he says 3 at best. Like there's enemies on all sides to the north, south, east, and west. I had a question in this. I want to get to Tommen because I agree, Stephen. Holy crap, Tommen. My question too was, who possesses the biggest threat you think they should be concerned about? Starks to the north, Sands to the south, Ilaria and Dorne, or Lady Olenna, who's weakened but still has a lot of because they highlighted that she owns all the grain and horses to feed their army. They don't have anyone if they don't have them. Or Danny coming with her armada. Who do you think poses the biggest threat?
I would say it's Danny there, basically just based off the fact that she has dragons. I mean, they don't know that she's united the South and the they don't know she's also bringing with Dorne and Highgarden there. And sorry not to branch off from your topic here too, but just kind of throwing this point out there of like, how big is the Lannister army really? Because it feels like the Lannister army is the largest army in Westeros there. They could overtake every other realm if they wanted to. And I'm kind of like, no, it can't be that large of an army there to deal with all of this stuff. But that's just me. So I don't know. Did anyone else?
Anyone else have a thought on that? Otherwise, I
Well,
can
the
kind of
soldiers that Arya walks up on seem rather new and inexperienced because I think she's considering killing them at first
point.
until she decides that they're probably not her enemies.
Point.
And one of
Which
them,
I'm hoping.
I was gonna say, and one of
Right.
them's Ed
I mean,
Sheeran, who is
At least Ed
Arya's.
Sheeran wasn't her enemy, so that's nice.
That would have been
Didn't have to
awesome.
kill him.
Watching Arya slit Ed Sheeran's throat on live TV, I'm just saying.
Supposedly, that's one of
Um,
Maisie Williams' favorite musicians too. So she was like supremely surprised when that happened. Behind the scenes stuff for you there, Gary.
So I'm hoping that
highlight.
also. Sorry, go ahead.
You're good.
I'm hoping that also means that Arya looked, because she considered them before she just decided to slaughter them. I'm hoping that means she did the same thing with the Freys, and that's why not every Frey is wiped out. Because she mentioned that she'd gathered all the ones that meant to damn to her.
Conspiracy theory 1.2. Ed Sheeran survives. And thus, if he would have died, he would have been a great actor.
You know, he is
Um,
your connection to Lord of the Rings, wasn't he? He sang a song in The Hobbit with book once too. So I think
oh, he did.
Yep.
I know nothing
there is
about The
the-
Hobbit.
We don't
Nothing.
speak of the
Did.
Hobbit.
Did.
He was in the Hobbit.
He wasn't in the Hobbit. He
had,
sang a song.
Oh,
it
sang
was
a
a good
song.
song.
Liked it. Yeah, so there's a lot there as far as which enemy is the most dangerous. That they're united as well, like you mentioned, Tyler. So probably Danny as the head of the three realm army coming up from the south. Yeah, so I can go back then to the previous aforementioned question with Steven talking about Tommen there. I had written down when Cersei says he betrayed me, and I had question mark, exclamation mark, expletive.
Hmm.
I wondered if she was highlighting because Tommen had decreed no one could use trial by combat, that she considered him as he betrayed
Oh.
me.
It could be.
So she might have considered Tommen dead to her in a sense that he wouldn't have had to do this if he hadn't stayed my hand, kind of a way. So when he betrayed me, he betrayed us, my perfect plan. I would have done this, and everybody would have been fine, and he would have lived. That's how I kind of took it. But no, I agree. Her wording, and especially like days, maybe after that had happened, that the way she phrases it, and Jamie has no idea. It sounds like she really doesn't care and wants to sweep it under the rug. So that was my take on that.
I want to pop in here real quick and just say that um, I think that it is very much a culmination of all the events of what he has done. I feel like she thinks he's betrayed her at multiple junctures, pledging to the Seven, becoming so infatuated with his wife because horrible. It's horrible if a husband becomes infatuated with his wife. Pretty much. There is obviously the outlawing trial by combat, not coming to her aid for anything, and
Right.
so I definitely don't think it was like a play on words. I think she might be trying to convince herself, and I just don't know if she believes it. Do you think she believes it, or is she just saying it?
Cersei
I think
has.
she believes it.
She's often said things too, like the second anything goes against her, they betrayed me. Like instantaneous. Like they did one thing, they betrayed me. They've done this. The Tyrells came and helped me. They slightly want their daughter marrying my son to be like important. They're betraying us. Like she has done this before. On the other hand, she's clearly grieving in a very healthy way and everything and all that jazz. So maybe this is just her trying to deal with that. But I find in the she's had such like she's so the her being a mother has been like her one redeeming characteristic this entire time. So I do find that interesting to see this because I didn't catch that. I didn't pay attention to that part apparently. So I do. That's really interesting.
I was going to point out that, yes, it's very poignant that she calls Tommen a traitor, but I think it's just the fact that in her mind, she won. She got all of her enemies in one spot and she blew them the F up. And then Tommen walked out a window right after the greatest victory for the Lannisters, as she saw it. And so she saw I was a traitor. Also, I think it's very poignant because this is probably a lot newer to Jamie. This is probably a fresher wound to Jamie, who was gone during all this drama and came back to watch her ascend the throne, and then still to find that she's a bitter woman, even
Yeah.
though like she's got great power. She's still it's just a dark soul.
And things being
Mhm.
denied her, she's always kind of acted like that too. So I mean, with Tommen gone, that's the last Baratheon claim she has to the throne, regardless of the fact that they had no Baratheon blood.
Also, they haven't really covered who makes up the small council now, because she killed a lot of the small council. She actually
Said
killed
not
the
well
entire
enough,
small
yeah.
council.
All of them, I would
Almost.
think.
Her uncle,
Okay.
the beardy man,
Beardy man.
Grand Maester Pycelle.
um,
Don't worry, I'll throw
Mace-
the actual names after.
Mace
we come back.
Tyrell.
Master of Coin, the Master of Ships.
I want the Gary name and then the actual name.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Hero
I
of the
think she got
Revolution,
everybody.
Ramsay.
I can't actually, to the top of my mind, think of who was on that small council anymore.
Mace Tyrell, the father of Marjorie and Loras Tyrell.
He started on fire.
He did.
Yeah.
Kevin was the hand.
Yeah, he
There's
did.
always a
She
Kevin. God
made the
damn it,
comment
Kevin.
that the small council wasn't small enough. She made it smaller.
Yeah, but it's interesting to think that just on that point that like she has no advisors. She was frustrated with like her dad never listening or taking her advice, and she literally just eliminated any support structure that existed.
She's the only support she needs, Gary. Haven't you realized that? She thinks everybody else is
Jamie.
doing it wrong. She knows exactly what to do. And if she needs questions answered, she'll talk to Qyburn and maybe Jamie.
Again, we've seen what happens when you have no counsel.
Also, I think on a rewatch, it definitely becomes a little more apparent that like how incompetent she is. That like it's just more poignant. Like in the first watch through, you're like, oh yeah, like her
She's
dad
clever.
just thinks she's incompetent
Yeah.
and super clever. But on the rewatch, you're like, wow, like you can just see the squeaky wheels working in her head, and you're like, this, she's not really doing well.
I can hear Charles Dance, who plays Tywin Lannister. You think you're terribly clever, don't you? Oh. Maybe it's Tyrion.
No, yeah, you're right. He says something
Yeah.
like you're
It's
not
Tywin.
as clever as you think you are.
Not as clever as you think you are. I had just one last comment on that stuff with Jamie and Tommen. I'm intruding on Steven's comments.
No, go for it.
She kind of ends that conversation kind of to that point. Should we? I love them. I did, but they're ashes now. We're still flesh and blood. Should we mourn the ashes or worry about what's next? It's kind of, I think, her own way of grieving, trying to move on the next thing and say, yeah, they're dead. Again, I don't know if it's poor writing there, that there should be more remorse to show that she was a good mother, or I highlighted several times, I think she's starting to slip into her darker side of madness, where it's just that power hungriness to stay on top. And, oh, my family's dead. All right, but I'm still in charge, right? Oh, I have no support structure. My whole council's dead because I did something terribly devastating, but I'm still in charge, right? Like, there's that will to be queen, to be in charge, and consequences be damned. And, I don't think that's going to end well, but I was just curious if that was how she was grieving, or if you see that that's who you think she may have always been.
Strange thought, we just talked about this. Sansa actually said something rather similar about to Jon, saying, about Robb and Ned Stark, saying, I loved them, but they made mistakes and they paid for them. So interesting parallel there.
So
poetry, it rhymes.
Right, trying to figure out how to move on and grieve while also honoring these people, but learning from their mistakes. How far will they go? How will they learn?
So I will I will only do one more point, and then if we have any other things, we can go back to them. I do have a couple other stuff. The very last thing that I wanted to bring up is that at 52 minutes and 56 seconds in this show, there is a very specific dagger that is shown. That I think it pauses on it for a couple seconds longer than anything else, just to kind of draw attention. And it is Littlefinger's dagger that he had given to the assassin, which started basically everything. And I'm not sure exactly who has it at this moment in time. I know who. Unfortunately,
I think Littlefinger comes back into
What scene are
possession
you
of
in? Because I was trying to look up by your timestamp, and I didn't find it.
Arya get it back?
No.
Littlefinger has it right now because he took it from Ned Stark, didn't he?
Yes,
I think
Littlefinger has
that
it.
might be true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now I found it.
Yeah, so it is a very specific dagger that is an um oh god, what's his name?
Samuel Tarley?
Thank you.
Samuel
As
Gamgee?
Yeah, as Samuel Gamgee says, um, it is. Look at these people. These Targaryens when they came over here, they decorated their weapons with dragon glass, never knowing what it was. And so this
Right.
is one of the daggers that was decked out with dragon glass, and it ties together a lot, and it I will say probably will be important in the future.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
I. I'll wait. I'll wait.
It's the book
Amanda.
reference. Amanda, sorry.
Yeah, Steven, I have to like I never seeing this one and being like, really, would that dagger really have a drawing in a book and blah blah blah. But it's been pointed out, like there's so few Valyrian steel weapons in
Mhm.
like existence that yeah, they would probably, it's not unknown for and uncommon for them to necessarily be drawn in books and blah 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 and all well known. However, that does make me wonder if if it's that reasonable for it to be well known, then why did Catelyn Stark have to be like, whose dagger is this?
Okay, well, just because maesters know, just because like the academic at the academic laboratory knows what something is, doesn't mean
Steven,
Joe Blow on the street.
are you defending Catelyn Stark?
Listen here, I'm not
Oh, he's
defending
talking
Agree with
Calvin
Catelyn.
Amanda
Bond.
because based on it being a very nice knife, I think that the maester would ask the question like, "Hey, like this looks like a very ornate weapon. Based on being a maester, you should be able to see some sort of ancestry, what kind of smith made it. I think there should have been more known. Anyway,
Yeah,
I,
at the
sorry.
very
that's probably
least
true.
for Valyrian steel, you'd think it would have been a little. It'd be a little bit more known if somebody lost a Valyrian steel dagger. That would have been the talk of the town, I would think. I don't know.
I don't think it's ever explicitly pointed out at that point or ever that it's a Valerian steel dagger. Just that it's a pretty dagger.
No, it's pointed out. At least in the books, it's definitely pointed out.
I don't think it's ever pointed out in the show.
I don't remember. Interesting. Nick.
So we are referencing the book, and so expanded material outside of the source of the TV show is warranted. I highlighted that this is also a dagger that's very heavily prominent in the House of the Dragon series as well.
Yes.
No, I didn't know that.
It's the same dang dagger, and
It
so
is.
it would be well known as it belonged to Viserys
Steven
the
didn't know
First.
that? Steven didn't know that?
I
Steven didn't
haven't-
watch the show with me.
No, I have
Oh.
not
So-
watched the House of the Dragon.
So in that regard, I highlighted it because it would be a well-known dagger. It was referenced and held by the king and the line of Targaryen kings. That would be maybe why it's in a book. Not every house person may know that several generations later, but that's a very prominent, specific dagger. It would be like saying, not only is this a well-decorated Valyrian dagger, it would be, hey, this is the king's dagger type thing. So I thought that they highlighted it there. Not that at this point in the show these writers would know that,
No.
but I thought that it was really interesting going back and seeing it now with, again, outside context and outside sources giving it greater scope. I was like, oh, whoa, holy crap, that's, and again, Tarly doesn't know, so he just flips through the book really quickly, but it shows that there are these artifacts in the world. Shots.
To go one step further, it's actually Aegon the Conqueror's dagger, as
Right,
mentioned
true.
briefly in the book and also in the House of the Dragon show there too. And I will kind of agree with you there though, Nick, though, because just because it's in a book doesn't mean every maester who came out of the Citadel would have any
Right.
reference or knowledge of this book, because especially too because Sam found the book in the restricted section of the library. So
Yes. Not everybody would have access to it, just the high archmaesters.
Which draws attention to, why is it in the forbidden section of the library anyways? Like, what about Valyrian steel weapons makes it off topic?
who knows what book it's actually in though, or something like that too.
I guess.
In the last Targaryen king went mad, so maybe anything about the Targaryen kings and what they were doing, burning people alive, was taboo. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know. Yeah, but that was my last thing.
Okay. Nick, why don't you go ahead and go?
Woohoo! Well, since we're there talking about Citadel, I highlighted Jim Broadbent, I believe, is who plays the Archmaester in that scene where they're reviewing the dead body. Broadbent has a couple roles where he usually plays a wizened teacher or older, learned individual in the Harry Potter series and a couple other shows. I love him as an actor, so that's why I highlighted that. But he has some really great one-liners talking to Sam, where Sam is again pondering just before he steals that book. You know, hey, how could I get access to some of this more important information? And the Archmaester, I forget his actual name in the show, is talking to Sam and says, the Archmaesters don't believe me that we actually saw the army of the dead. And the Archmaester says it's their job to doubt. Which is, I thought I took as really something interesting. Like, I like learning, I like trying to understand stuff. I went to college multiple times. I feel like there's a certain level of criticism and cynicism that you should have, but it's weird to say their job is to doubt. That seemed very weird to me, so I highlighted that. Then I have a second part to my question here as well. So I'll let, it looks like Steven's got a question, so I'll let you react to that.
I was going to say that I agree with you. It is kind of a warped view of education if it is your job to doubt. It's not your job to doubt, it's your job to be critical of. And
Right.
that is...
How do you teach anything if everything I say I want you to doubt?
Right? There are axioms for a reason out there. And yes, you should be critical of the axioms because the axioms don't always stay axioms. That being said, you shouldn't go forth and say, well, because we know gravity isn't real. I mean, you're not going to have to reprove everything, and that just leads you to a brain drain, which, hey, maybe that's the reason why they're still using Valerian steel, like, how many hundred of years after Viserion that we just talked about? They haven't upgraded their weapons at all. They haven't upgraded their technology at all, their civilization at all. This is brain drain. Conspiracy theory number 4! It is actually the Citadel's reason that this world is stuck in the medieval times.
Ha! So that ties into my next point. You guys go, but I'm going to hang on to that thought. It's the Citadel's thought.
I was going to say that it's possibly just poor writing. I don't remember. What is George R. Martin by trade before he was a writer? I didn't know if he was a
writer,
sciencey person or an
writer.
English major.
He might have wrote some TV shows.
I'm going to actually give that scene specifically bad writing credit because I feel like you shouldn't have an English major explain the scientific method that the Citadel would use about like you guys were saying about like their goal is to criticize or their goal is to be skeptical. And I think that is a poor writing problem when you have an English major writing about science. Steven?
Real quick,
Sorry,
I just wanted to jump in and say, in 1970, Martin earned a BS in journalism with a minor in history. So that is where his thing
he
was.
is not a scientist by nature. He's a writer by nature. Anyway, sorry.
Just because you go to school for one thing, Gary, does not mean you can't expand your knowledge base there.
I went to school for one thing and I was poor at everything. So let's not elaborate that you can have to be good at one thing to go to school. You can be bad at everything. Anyway, Tyler.
This will be one point I'll mention here too, because around this time I was really heavy into watching. Like I said, I've probably said a couple of times on this podcast, a YouTube channel who kind of went into the history of the books and stuff, and then like after each episode, he would kind of do a YouTube video of breaking down the episode and how does it maybe tie in with where the books are going and everything like that. And he did a whole separate video speaking of the Maesters and stuff like that, of how there's possibly this grand conspiracy going on with the Maesters there to kind of influence or shift the powers in Westeros there and everything, which kind of sort of ties into what we're talking about here, Nick's conspiracy theorizing over there.
It's not a conspiracy theory. He didn't start with conspiracy theory. So only Steven got a conspiracy theory. So sorry.
I mean, they actually did mention that a few times in the books too about different lords that were mistrustful of the maesters that were serving for them because before they were maester, they were a member of one of those rival families, including ones that are at war now. So that's not. And when Sam does visit Old Town in the books, there's also like there's a lot of heavy politics and other things at play. Like it's not a aloof school above the turbulent times.
Interesting. So what I had on the second part of that conversation, in that same interaction where Sam is talking to this maester, he says it's their job to doubt, and he also goes on to say, tying into what we're talking about now, conspiracy, Gary. He says, we are this world's memory. He said has something else about the wall specifically, and says that the wall has stood for 1,000 years, and every winter that's come has ended. Oh, and I'm not giving the writers credit enough to say that they put this in intentionally, but the wording in it, a little bit of that thinking behind it, does kind of sound like they're directing the thought that this winter's not going to be that bad. We are this world's memory. We remember, we have the histories that show that the turbulent times we're in were not that terrible. We will remind you, we will recall for you what you should be concerned with a little bit. And so maybe there was some of that Citadel kind of skewing the populace's mindset. What do you think?
So I guess I kind of agree with that, and I'm not sure this is what the show intends. And I hesitate to say that the show is being deep. But it almost feels like they're saying there is a fallibility in the human knowledge, that you have this citadel of knowledge. You have the history. We are the history of it, and they're fallible, and they're so fallible, in fact, that they are regressing this world. And I think if you wanted to, you could make that into a pretty good statement of human fallibility, and maybe don't always just trust in knowledge. That might be what they're going for. I don't know, and like I say, I hesitate to give anything deep to, especially this far into this show, but it's what it could be for.
The omnipresence that we as the viewers have, I would think that John is far more trustworthy a person than the Citadel folks who have only ever seen their books.
You know what they say? In theory, theory is as good as practice. In practice, it isn't.
Interesting. I like a reference from Jurassic Park 3 where Sam Neill's character, Dr. Grant, comments how there are astronauts and there are there are astronauts and there are astronomers. You can learn everything there is about the stars as an astronomer, but then you never get to go to space. Two totally different, professions.
I love that you just put a Jurassic Park reference in here. I'm all about this.
I mean, he didn't take it from a good Jurassic Park movie.
Ooh.
So...
That's a can of worms for another time.
Yes, that's a can of worms for another time.
Before we leave the Citadel, can I just say two things real quick? Life in the Citadel ain't what it's hyped up to be. It looks
it's real shitty.
Literally, quite literally.
I 100% identified with that little montage of Sam just day in, day out doing cheers to him. He's doing that work. It's not all, even at the wall, he would have done, a lot of grunt work every single day. You would have done this. And it showed the never ending everydayness of that. And I actually really enjoyed that scene.
I can jump in really quick on an unrelated topic, but in that same montage too. I highlighted later, there was a part in this episode later on when I thought to myself, whoa, time jump. But how long did we watch Sam go through his daily routine? So while it does seem like, oh, there's a time jump, how did this group move so fast here, or how long has this transpired? How long did we watch Sam? And again, it might not have been chronologically when we saw it. So I thought that was interesting too.
Chronology of this damn show.
Yeah, that is definitely something we've pointed out here earlier in our discussions here of like, it would be real nice if the show kind of kept everything chronologically together or whatever, but a lot of this stuff is happening at the same time, or something happened before, and now they're catching it up to the same time or whatever. It's real kind of bad with the passage of time. Gary.
I want the bare naked ladies in the background to just pop in and go, "It's been 1 week since you looked at me."
We're gonna get copyright
Sure,
struck for
Gary.
that.
Yeah,
Way to go, Nick.
we don't, Nick. We don't. We're not laughing at your joke. It was a bad joke. We're moving
It was
forward.
not a bad joke.
Coming from Gary.
I was going to ask if part of the Citadel is really giving shite work to people who want to be maesters to sort of narrow the ranks, so that like
Only
the
the
value
real-
of being a maester, like he went there and thought it was going to just be like this institution of learning, but I think what you're sort of seeing is that maybe the process of getting through it is a lot of hazing that most people don't survive and decide that knowledge isn't worth putting up with people's shit.
Yeah.
So,
Literally.
but then again, like, I also don't think there's that many maesters that get sent out. So is it this, like, they have to wean people down and, like, it's really is a facade as to what actually happens? And you guys were talking about, like, grand conspiracies about world politics. And it's like, really, Sam wouldn't know because he's so many levels below knowing what's actually happening at a like systematic level. Like he's just a pawn. He's a pawn in the system. So anyway.
And
Nick, no one else wants to talk about the Citadel. You're up.
I
I want to talk about your last point there. I think through most literature and most television shows, Gary, the pawns are the ones, case in point, the smallest hobbitses in your Lord of the Rings continual references, the ones who shape the framework of all this stuff. I think that Sam picking up, latrine duty and all that kind of stuff and restocking books, he probably has a greater hand on the pulse of what's going on at the Citadel than most. If he's restocking the books that the maesters are reading, if he's walking by everybody's bedchamber at night, he may hear a conversation or two there. He's probably not sitting at the table making decisions with anybody, but I think he probably has a better idea of who's doing what, who's reading what, who's going where than most people.
I'm going to say that Nick was 100% wrong because Nick, he is putting back books that the maesters are reading, but he's not putting back the good books. He's putting back like the level 1 like security clearance books. He's not putting back the like let's like make dragon fire and figure out how dragon glass works. Like he's putting back like how like basic herbology or something. Like he's not getting like behind the scenes access. He's getting like just bitch work, like being a low paid librarian. Anyway, Steven.
I would say that it's kind of the same. You don't expect the fun fact in the Pentagon. There is a Starbucks in the Pentagon. You have to have a security clearance to work at that Starbucks. That said, I doubt the people who work at the Starbucks know more about the goings on of everything there than anyone else.
I thought that was the CIA. I thought that was the CIA, not Pentagon.
I bet you
think that they would
those
know more. I
Starbucks
agree with
employees are probably very good about knowing who takes what sort of coffees and who are friends.
But the point being is
And
that
I'm
they don't know about the world. They're not
Right.
masters of international, spycraft or military, whatever.
Not in the least. I'm not saying that they would know more or that they're masters of anything. But I
No,
would
you
think
did say that.
Just
You said they'd have the pulse on the world, and I don't think they would.
if I said pulse in the world, I apologize. I misspoke. But I would think that they would not just be a pawn doing grunt work solely. I think that I'll say he's learned enough to know where the restricted areas of information are kept.
Back to Steven's point, I'm sure that person that works at the Starbucks, I'm sure they get paid really, really well, and I'm sure they have some really, really good friends.
Really nice.
And I'm sure they get
macchiatos.
invited to the coolest parties.
Maybe. I did want to say one more thing before we move on from the Citadel. They have a sexy library. Sexy library. and I would take all my vacations on that library. I want to spend my vacation in the library.
Their
don't
favorite
know if
library
we-
you've seen, Steven? Does that top like what's another one? Like the Beauty and the Beast library? What are we comparing it to
Beauty
here?
and the Beast library sucks because I have no idea what they have in there. It's probably all in French. I have
Probably.
I don't know. This has some arcane knowledge, but I feel like some of the stuff that I would read here would be like super enlightening. Like I bet you money if you studied in this library long enough and knew where to look, you'd understand the red woman and the red gods and all that sort of stuff. I also think you might find treaties on how the moon is made of cheese. So
Yeah, but
take
the
some good
really
stuff.
interesting stuff would be in French, Steven, so you wouldn't read it.
Wouldn't be in French because there is no France in this place, Amanda.
As a side point, I think my favorite library is the one from The Last Crusade, where X actually does mark the spot. But
Oh my
Good one.
god.
Good one.
Solid side movie references in this episode.
Yeah, we're doing great on that.
anyway,
Alright.
whose points are we on?
I think we're back to
I think
Nick.
it was Steven.
No, not me. It's Nick.
Oh, sorry, Nick.
Are we done with the Citadel?
We can be.
Okay.
We should be.
Should be, says Gary. And thus, we will move on. I'm actually going to go back in time in the episode because we skipped over Euron, the greatest captain of the 14
Oh.
seas.
The Jack Sparrow wannabe.
Yeah,
Oh,
the Jack Sparrow imposter. Yes.
if I had half the guts of this cretin, what's our thoughts here? Trust him because he's got the armada, or was sending him away the best thought? Right to it. Cersei
I
doesn't
think-
trust him. She says so to his face, and he says he'll go back and get her a gift. We don't know what that means. Is that the right thing to do, or should she have offered to marry him, as it sounds like he wanted?
I think Cersei knows that she's holding all the cards, and I think Cersei knows that there is that he needs this. So I think she makes entirely the right play. We were talking about how Cersei thinks she is more cunning than she actually is. She might not be cunning in this sense, but she does know the cards she's holding. She knows the cards Euron's holding, and she knows how to play them. And I think this is correct. She's getting the most powerful fleet in Westeros, and doesn't have to even marry anyone yet, because he's going to get her a prize.
Is it proof that I missed the hero of the revolution, where I can think of when he says I'm getting you a gift? Is that Ramsay sends the Greyjoys back Theon's favorite gift?
Is this your new
That's
hero of the
all I could
revolution? Is Euron the new hero of the revolution? Hero of the
I don't
seas?
think so.
He's not hero enough for you, Gary?
He's not hero enough. Also,
Ooh.
I don't think he'll be around that long. Like he's
He's too good an
overacting a little bit. He's they gave him a minor role and they're gonna kill him off. That's my theory. I guess at this point, do you think he's going to sit at the Iron Throne at the end of the show? What is his Vegas odds?
I think that for him to get to the Iron Throne, he has to go through Cersei. And as we're talking about here, I don't think that the Lannisters, Cersei or Jaime, trust him.
Yeah,
I'd say pretty
enough.
sparse.
Anyway, Nick,
Did
what
you
else
have
do you got to
something?
say on Euron?
Something else on Euron, but Shots, did you have something? Or are you good?
I'm good. Everybody else covered my points.
The last thing I had was clearly Jaime is pretty against Euron from the get go. There, they have a couple little snide comments back and forth, but at one point, they reference to Euron how Euron killed his brother, Balon Greyjoy, which he did, and Euron doesn't shy from it at all. In fact, he leans into Jaime and to Cersei and says it was very freeing, and says you should try it. With Jaime standing right there, I wrote down that was gutsy. Like.
Different
What point-
brother. He could be talking about her other brother too.
But is he?
It could be. Yeah, is he though? He could be, but I think he's told. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause
that's
clearly,
true. It's definitely.
Clearly, Euron knows the stories that they're a pair. You know, and Jaime's standing right there defending everything that he's saying to Cersei about why she can't just marry him and take him as her paramour. And so, yeah, I think that that's very directed at you should get rid of this dead weight so that I can try and make advances on you. There wasn't really a question there, I guess. I just had this highlighted that Euron is clearly infringing on what, or trying to get in on what Jaime and Cersei have. And is that wise for the Lannisters to turn away? Because they just had that whole previous scene on the map room about how they need better, stronger allies. It's like, okay, well, here's Euron with the fleet, willing to give it to Cersei in more ways than one.
Cersei allows it too. Like, she doesn't just shut him down or
Right.
anything.
Right.
I honestly
I
think she handled it pretty well because, like, there was literally no need for her to commit to anything.
Right. Yeah, she's smirking. She's making little smirks at that and smiling at his advances. Like, she's playing along with it. Losing her grip on reality is what I wrote again, but she's willing to entice him enough about it. I think it's the right move to turn him away. But they need allies, so why not just say yes and guarantee that allegiance? Interesting. I have another one, but I think we may come around to it again, so I'll defer to another person. To shot.
All right, Amanda, what do you got for us?
Let me check my notes. You guys took most of mine. I guess I'll have to go to the Hound traveling with Beric Dondarrion over there. They come across a house that we find is a little bit familiar. This was the dad and the little girl that we saw, I don't know how many seasons ago now. But the Hound shows some remorse at this, like not guilt about it, but like he's sad that it happened, which is something he didn't even express at the time when Arya was like, "What the hell, man?" Also, I note he's still traveling with them. Like, he thought they were ridiculous. He doesn't agree with them, but he's still traveling with them. It's like this company where they just like they get used to each other even though they completely disagree. Go ahead, Gary.
Is it just that he's lonely? Like, he had a traveling companion. She left him for dead. He woke up and he had this new friend who was trying to teach him the ways of the Seven. He got murdered because he trusted the wrong people, and then he's at least with these guys, he doesn't have to BS with them. Like, they know he's a murderer, and he thinks they're dog crap. They have a mutually assured understanding that they don't like each other, but they respect one another enough that they're like, well, might as well roam together. Tyler?
If I were to put it in context of actual stuff going on in the show, I would probably say that him traveling with them is probably more for safety and numbers because he probably still has a bounty on his head and everything from the Lannisters. So him traveling with the Brotherhood without banners there is probably safer in the long run for him.
Who are also technically criminals under the crown.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
I almost chalked that up as a conspiracy theory, but I don't think there was actually a conspiracy in there. It's just a theory.
It's just Gary's wild guessing.
Yeah.
You guys kind of took most of my points.
I think we've talked about like most of the episode so far.
Yeah, like we've really gotten there.
I still have several points, but
I have one more.
I have one more, but it's just really
over here.
the ending, so I'll just go ahead and move on to Gary.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's go ahead, Gary.
Going back to the White Walkers, I made a point, which was just kind of a random one, and that is, why is it that only some of the White Walkers get horses? Is there a hierarchy of needs? Is there like only so many White Walker horses, or like what's going on? Nick, wagging your finger at me.
The White Walkers all have horses. The Whites are walking.
Exactly.
So the White Walkers white horses, but the Whites walk.
That's right. The right White Walkers walk, but the White Walkers won't.
No, some of the White Walkers walk.
They get off the horse, maybe.
The Whites,
off their high horse.
Whites are the reanimated. The Whites, WIGHT, are the reanimated corpses of the dead. White Walkers are the people with like the main people who are on the horses, like the commanders. Like the Night King is the White Walker.
So the good actors are the White Walkers. Got
They're the
it.
ones that get. They're the ones that get horses. Maybe it's like the
Exactly.
Khalasar, where only a handful get the horses.
There you
Blood
go.
But that was
Riders.
all I
Right,
noticed
yeah.
is like there's only some of these guys that have horses, but
For
not
the rest
all
of
of
you
them.
guys, suck it up.
Look, there's
You're
an
dead.
unlimited.
It can't be that hard. Keep walking.
There's an unlimited amount of extras. There's a limited amount of horses.
Unlimited. Yeah,
I
there's a
gotta
limited
I gotta
amount
tell
of
you,
dead
too,
horses.
The Army of the Dead, the thing that terrifies me the most in that scene is when you see the thousands of bodies and the towering undead giants. Giants are what terrify me the most.
I don't know.
But I'm
Giants
just
don't seem
saying,
to have.
if you can reanimate a giant, why can't you reanimate some more GF horses, GD horses?
They're
So
tough
more
to
people can
train.
ride horses.
It's just tough to train a
Tough to
dead
train.
horse, Gary. They just don't respond
Look,
the
don't
same.
kick a dead horse while it's down. All right. what
Why
I will
not
say-
reanimate some dire wolves or some other like elephants or whatever
Ooh.
You
else?
reanimate it, if you reanimate it, you're in charge of taking it outside to go to the bathroom, and then you gotta feed it. This is whole thing, Gary.
Maybe they're incapable of making saddles, so if the horse didn't happen to have a saddle, they're done for.
I assume they just freeze their balls to the horse.
Probably. I want to point out that I want to see if these frozen giants are any more useful than the
No, it should be fine,
the
right?
loved what is his name? Kun Kun Tun Tun
One.
One. Yeah, I couldn't remember. It was two things.
One.
But then one who couldn't figure out how to throw rocks or use tree branches. I'm sure that the White Walkers, in their infinite wisdom, will probably put these siege experts to good use.
Totally.
They're mini
Creation.
bosses in any RPG.
They're
like,
mini
they don't do
bosses.
a lot of damage, but they don't do a lot of damage, but they take a whole lot of bullets.
I fought these guys in Skyrim before. Okay, they do a fair amount of damage.
You gotta be careful though. If
flown
they
off
hit
the
you with
map.
that club, you're gone.
We brushed over Arya, and I thought it was maybe the fact that like throughout that conversation, you don't know if she's gonna murder these people. And honestly, in a rewatch, I kind of thought she did murder them. Steven?
Oh, no, I didn't think
Ooh.
that at all. What I was going to
Hurt.
say is I was impressed with how much more confident and easygoing she is with very much enemies. She's done this with the Freys we saw in the beginning. Now she's doing it with Lannisters. And these Lannister soldiers are showing also a different side. Like, oh, it's my blackberry wine. I made it myself, you know. My mother loves it. And he's Australian, apparently, so don't worry about it. But,
Boy.
I mean...
I know what that
It's-
was.
Yes, it was. But
The accents in Game of Thrones are very inconsistent. So,
and so are mine. So we work well.
Yeah,
But
fair enough.
they are both the Arya is able to put them at ease in a way I don't think she could before. She knew how to fight and she knew how to hide. Now she knows how to coexist, and that is a dangerous thing. That's a dangerous skill to have. I also think this shows a different side of the soldiers. We've seen many other of the soldiers humanized. I don't think we've seen Lannister soldiers humanized as much
Mhm.
before, and this is a very humanizing experience for them.
I would like to see this scene 5 minutes after it ended. Like Gary said, I don't think that she kills them, but the last thing we see is she says, "I'm going to kill the queen." They all kind of like laugh it off, like ha 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 ha, and she just kind of smiles, and the scene ends. I'd like to see like if she's like, "No, I'm actually just going south to visit my family," or if she's like, "No, I'm serious," and they're like realize that she's someone not to be trifled with. I'm curious how that scene does play out, because I think that she does have the ability to play non-harmful because of her stature, but we know clearly from the last, even this episode, that she is definitely somebody dangerous. So it would be, I mean, just for devil's advocate's sake, what if she kills somebody, takes a Lannister army face, and she could just wander around? Like, where would she not be able to get to?
Just
think
imagining
that
5
that's-
minutes afterwards, the soldiers looking at each other, be like, Do you think she was serious? Is this a problem?
Right.
Should we tell someone?
And then the singer dude turns and goes, "Bro, not our problem. I want more Blackberry.
Not my job.
Not my
I was actually
problem."
gonna make the joke about like if the actor was Ed Sheeran, then he would have been a good actor because he would have died. So
She
this
she
is a
leaves
trade-off
and then they
there.
all like look at each other and go, "Did you all just see that little girl here, or is this the blackberry wine that we're just hallucinating?"
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting scene because obviously it's trying to humanize soldiers and just kind of foot soldiers, which isn't done very often. Like many other things, I don't know if we'll ever interact with these characters ever again.
Right.
Also, yeah, I found this scene really weird because it seems really weird that they don't ask why she's a 20-something woman in the show, probably like 18, alone on a horse, without any accompaniment on the King's Road. Like, I would think that would be a very dangerous, and just to like walk up to a bunch of dudes, like
Military
seems like
encampment, nonetheless.
but yeah, like
No,
that
I
seems
agree.
like a
I'm
very
agreeing with you.
dangerous place for a woman to be alone. But I mean, obviously in Westeros, people are all gentlemen, so
It's true.
Eh,
The King's Road is pretty safe. We've established that so far.
Yeah, but you're only on the King's Road for about like 5 minutes, and then you're at your other place. It's basically a moving
Yeah.
road that just brings you where you want to go.
No, that's why it's fine for people to travel it alone. Especially after years of war, it's good. We're fine.
Fast
Yeah,
travel
no
unlocked for
bandits.
everyone else.
Fast
Again,
travel unlocked.
Arya's been
Again,
there before. She's been on the top. She's done the eagle dive.
again,
Hey,
we
Don't
saw
you make
Sam
fun of
Tar-
that. It works.
we we saw Sam Tarley clean up crap for a month straight. She's had plenty of time to navigate all of the King's Road.
Also on a rewatch, kind of forgetting about Arya, is that it's implied that she went to the Twins, and now from the Twins is heading south to King's Landing, which I don't remember at all. I don't remember what happens from this point on, so I will be pleasantly surprised as to what her next appearance is.
Okay, cool.
Even though, as continuity in this show, it's terrible, it'll be at least 6 episodes before we see her again. So Tyler
Remember,
shakes his
Gary,
head, and then I remember
remember,
there's only 6 more episodes in this season.
There's only 13 hours of story left to tell.
Yes. That was all I had. And then we talked about Sandor Clegane. I'm the right Clegane. I can never forget their first names.
The Hound. Yeah.
Is that he talks and he looks into the fire, and I don't remember that, but on a rewatch I was especially like frustrated at that scene because all I could think was like, you couldn't make some like crappy cartoon special effects in a fire to see what he sees. Like, it's just him looking at his face, and then he looks at a fire, which in my terrible eyesight, I don't see anything happening in the fire. And it's just him. Imagine someone describing a visual effects in a very, very good movie, and that's what that scene is not actually showing a visual effect, but just have someone explain what's happening.
You gotta
Sorry,
save money
Nick.
somehow, Gary.
I kind of like that it didn't show it, Gary. I love disagreeing with you, but I'll disagree with you on this one on premise. I think it's more intriguing that we can't see it. Does not Beric Dondarrion, who's the Thoros? Thoros of Mir says, "Look into the fire. What do you see?" Does Thoros see it, and he wants the Hound to see it, or does he see something different from what he's looking at in the fire? I think it's really interesting again, and again, I'm more intrigued with the Lord of Light rewatching these episodes because of all the 7 and the old gods and the new. We have tangibly seen the Lord of Light interact with the characters in this plane, in this world. So there's something clearly going on there. The Hound, who is got to be one of the most cynical people when it comes to this religion, is seeing something because he's detailing what he thinks he sees. It's interesting. I kind of like that they didn't show it. I thought it was an interesting trope.
Steven,
I want to
your thoughts?
clarify. Yeah, I want to clarify first of all that you do not see the Lord of Light or the Lord of Light interacting with anything. You see a power that is attributed to the Lord of Light affecting things, and I think that
Yeah.
is a very definite change or difference, I should say. I will
Enough.
say though, I do agree with you that not seeing what he is seeing kind of leaves it to the viewer, and it's something I don't think you see very much in TV shows, movies, games, books, anything like that. Well, books definitely you have to. Any of these other things, you leave it to the reader to imagine what is happening and you don't spoon feed it to them. And it relies on their creativity and their intelligence to see what they are seeing, or is he making it up? Is it not happening? It leaves a whole bunch of different things open. And it's not like you're not looking in the goblet of fire and seeing whatever the heck you are, the mirror of whatever in Harry Potter. It's
Mhm.
you are leaving it up to the viewer themselves to kind of
Airship?
understand it.
You can put your own interpretation into it. It's more terrifying because it's something more visceral to you. If it's defined and it's clearly shown, it's not as terrifying and unknown because you can see it.
I don't know. I can understand that allowing the viewer to kind of make their own, but I would have liked something in the middle ground at least of like have him see one image and then and then explain the rest of the images. But like I really did take me out to just have somebody like stare 3 inches to the left of a camera and say, "Here's what I'm seeing." Yep, yep, okay, and it just completely took me out of the show. Tyler?
Gary
We'll
has no
open the magic
imagination to
wand.
follow along with what's going
I
on.
was just gonna say, use your imagination, Gary.
What about it like a middle of the road thing? I think could have been. What if there was like a light in the flame, not an image, but maybe like a I
A
don't know, a
light,
purple
yeah.
light, something that's not supposed to be there, but obviously is kind of glimmering, and it's showing him an image, not showing the viewer an image.
Also, the delay going between him being questioning that there's something in the flame to him full on explaining what he's seeing wasn't a good transition or good like oh I'm seeing something like a oh dear what am like there wasn't any transition. It went from like I don't believe you, fire is bull BS, I hate fire, to like, oh, I'm seeing magical fairy powers in the fire.
It
Like,
was a bit quick.
I think also with that note though, Gary, it speaks to, as Stephen rightly pointed out, it's the powers being attributed to the Lord of Light. Maybe they want to address the non-believer because they know everybody else in the room has already bought into it. So maybe it's more
think
powerful
that
to show.
I don't think that the dialogue addressed it well. It force fed that, you know, he's a believer now. Like it didn't there was it just happened too quick for me. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Do you think it happened at an acceptable pace?
I think that him relaying what he believes he saw happened at an acceptable race. I don't know if one interaction is enough to change Sandor Clegane's entire worldview. I think that the way he relayed it told us that he believes he saw what he told us he thinks he saw.
Anyway, just I guess a difference in opinion of how, you know, the poor production value in this show and how it could have been better.
Gaslighting at all.
Uh then a little bit later on you see Sandor grieving for the young child and the father, and you sense that he like starts reciting a prayer of the seven, and then he says, "Oh well, I don't remember the words. Hell with it. I'm sorry you're dead." And then he just like walks away. Like he's attempting to mourn, but at the very bit of it, like it all comes down to like he doesn't need to believe. He's just sorry these people are dead. Whereas the whoever else, Loris of Mir, was probably gonna say some like fire person prayer over him. So And that is all I have until the end of the episode. If you guys are ready to jump to the end of the episode.
Yeah, I guess, does anyone have anything else about the rest of the episode, or are we all kind of holding off till the end of the episode here?
Yep,
Holding off
just
for
about
that
Danny.
awesome end.
All right, so let's jump into Steven's favorite character here. Danny arrives at Dragonstone. And
7 seasons in.
Boring.
Danny has now entered Westeros, and that's an interesting thing to think about. Other than Tyrion, Danny has not interacted with like any character from Westeros there, basically.
Varys.
Well, Varys is now there too, yeah, but she hasn't like quite interacted with him as much.
The
Yara.
night.
Yara and Theon
Well, okay.
just
So-
joined her.
Chatsy, you're wrong.
Just dig a hole here a little bit.
Conspiracy theory destroyed.
But it's a great like final 2, 3, 4. I don't know how long it goes. It feels like it goes a good while, but it's
7 minutes.
7
It's
minutes.
7 minutes
Wow.
between when she lands and the last word said in the episode.
But yeah, like basically 7 minutes of no dialogue at all. It's Danny landing at Dragonstone, where she has not been since she was born, taking it all in and everything like that. And then the music is just on fire this entire part here too. So throw it over to Steven there.
So the number one thing that I noticed on this rewatch that I had never noticed before is the first part of this scene when they are sailing in that little ship and everyone is looking straight forward at the castle. And I noticed there is only one character who does not continuously stare at the castle, and that is Varys. Varys looks at Daenerys to see what Daenerys is looking at, basically to observe what she is observing or how she is doing it, which is something that I think is in line with Varys. Varys is somebody that's really, observing of other people, trying to collect that intelligence. And I thought it was very poignant. Now, it's such a small thing to have happen, but it's a definite glance over to her and then glance back to the castle. Everyone else laser focused on the castle.
Interesting.
I'm probably gonna. Everyone's gonna disagree with me. I thought
Oh,
that they
no.
dragged that out way too long. For all of the things they skip over in this show, they spent 7 minutes in nice music, but just kind of milking this out. And I
But
guess
the-
it
It's been
really comes
7
down to
seasons,
like,
Gary.
is
This is
it
the
like, is it
You're
supposed
right, Gary.
to be
You're wrong.
about her
Accumulation.
homecoming? Like, I didn't really get the sense, as somebody who can't visualize, with no dialogue, it was just a very drawn out, quiet time of no one, like, just trying to, like, lay on the shoulders of the actress of Daenerys Targaryen, and I thought it failed horribly. Like, bad acting 101. Like, leave the camera on this actress for an extended period of time
Oh
with no
gosh.
dialogue.
So
You
the
say that
whole
if Gary
point
was
of
in this show, he would survive to the very end. He's a terrible actor. Apparently.
So the whole point of the scene, Gary, is just the emotional impact on Danny is now in Westeros there. She is now back at her home, which we the viewer have not even seen Dragonstone really in its fullest there. We've seen bits and pieces of it when Stannis was still inhabiting of it.
Mhm.
But now it's like fully laying out more of this is what Dragonstone is there, because we've heard all about it for all this time. And it's made to feel emotionally impactful why they don't talk there and everything, because everybody is just taking it in. There's even a point there where like it's touched on at the end of the episode part when the two showrunners are talking about it, like when they're walking into the throne room there, Grey Worm's instinct is to follow Danny as she walks forward, but everyone holds him back there too. It's like, no, let her have this there. Basically, this is her time there, basically, to take it all in the castle there. Steven.
I would say that, going off of different TV shows out there, this is the we're in the end game now moment, right? It's something that has to be milked out because it is so important. It is a game-changing event. This is a pivot turn point. We have been watching this this powerful, and we even talked about it earlier. We asked who was the most threatening army to Cersei, It's Daenerys. And now Daenerys is on Westeros. It's not theoretical anymore. She is there. And so this is incredibly important.
So to quickly cut in here too, Nick, geography wise, Dragonstone is literally like right outside of King's Landing, isn't it? Pretty much. I
It's
mean,
right. Yeah, it's a good ways, like nautical miles. I don't know how far, but it's out enough that you're not immediately on their doorstep, but you are close. You're
You're pretty close.
definitely in the Gulf of the Blackwater Rush, which is where essentially the ocean comes into a focal point where King's Landing is located. You're just off the coast a little bit. It's north of Driftmark and other
It's
small
only
little
like a half
archipelago
day
places.
by Dragonback or by boat. I don't know which
Yeah,
one.
yeah. You're close. I likened this. My next point was going to be like in chess moves. Danny landing on Dragonstone is like check. You don't have the win, but you're showing I am close enough. I can strike you now, especially a day by Dragonback, and she's got 3 of them. This is I am here. I am at your doorstep. I'm close enough now to the Red Keep. I could attack you from here if I wanted to. Steven's got me thinking military tactics when I was watching this scene. My first comment was, don't put all of your captains in one small boat to row to shore.
Right? All you need is one rogue wave and
I know, I thought to myself, like I'd keep Grey Worm or Tyrion on the boat still and have Dany sail in by herself or somebody to go with her. But don't put all of your big, pieces all at once in the same boat. But yeah, that montage walking through there is kind of her homage to say she's coming home. I mean, just like when the original Targaryens 300 odd years ago first came to Westeros, they all stayed just in Dragonstone until Aegon's conquest began. This is her when she puts her hand down on the turf and the sand on the beach. This is her as a Targaryen kind of coming home. You have your finger up?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear you, Nick. I just was noticing, and maybe you can answer this. The throne that she walks past, is that the Driftmark throne? Or what is the name of the throne in that area? It's not a named throne, it's just the throne room of
I don't think it has a named throne. I'll
Yeah.
double check quick, but I think it's just the Dragonstone.
Like they're just their room. Yeah.
Because the seven kingdoms and Westeros, as we know it, was only unified after Aegon's conquest. Before that, each little area had its own kind of king or little minor nobles. Dragonstone was always the home of the Targaryens until Aegon made it to the now Crown Lands, where King's Landing, as such, happened. Before that, he was just kind of the Targaryens were out on Dragonstone minding their own business.
Okay. Also, I noticed as I was going scene by scene is that everyone is wearing very, very nice clothes for being at sea for multiple months. And I noticed the Grey Worm kind of has a more, I don't know, more knightly sort of armor. Just kind of a different armor set that maybe he's adapting to the Westerosi type of armor. Anyway, Steven?
So I had 2 points here. The first point was my original point, and that was just going to be to point out how absurd the walk up to Dragonstone is on that windy little snake's path that Goku probably runs up every other day. Just the epitome of dumb. I guess, yeah, it's in a siege. No one's going to get up there because you know why? You're not even going to get a cabinet up there. You're not going to get a bed up there. I hope you have IKEA in Westeros because that's the only way you're getting furniture. My second and actual more realistic thought was inspired by Nick in terms of military strategy and looking up the actual location of Dragonstone compared to where King's Landing is. And it is in the mouth of Blackwater Bay, or the Gullet is what it is called. And that is a very strategic location. I'm sorry. I know you're probably right. I already said
Nick,
it. But
you have a terrible camera quality, so we can't
yeah,
see what
we,
you're trying
we
to hold
cannot
up.
make that out, Nick. As Nick holds
But
up a
Invest
picture to
in
the
a nicer
camera.
camera, and we'll
yes,
talk.
Nick was holding a picture up to the camera and it's just not showing.
Dang
But
it.
what I will say is that this actually raises some red flags for me. If you inhabit Dragonstone, other than Driftmark, if you took Driftmark, that would really close off the entire Blackwater Bay. I don't see how you're getting a fleet into King's Landing. Like, Euron can do whatever the heck Euron wants to do. I'm not sure how you're getting past Daenerys' fleet at Dragonstone, how you're getting past the dragons at Dragonstone without being seen, and it doesn't make much for the how easily Euron is able to traverse the waters. It doesn't make sense compared to where Dragonstone is.
It's almost
We
like
don't
she
know what the
doesn't know
timeline is.
about the Iron Fleet, or may have forgotten about the Iron Fleet.
This could be months
but,
apart.
okay, but that's kind of the thing, though. If you're inhabiting that island, that's what I'm just trying to say, is that she should have been able to see a massive fleet off in the distance, regardless of where she is, especially at Dragonstone. And I'm sure this will have no implications in the future.
One other note, different than your interesting point, Stephen. It's fair. I did notice that with Dany's next outfit change here, she's wearing her Dragonstone. She's wearing the Targaryen colors. She's wearing the black. But when I was thinking that, I also realized, honestly, other than Jaime Lannister and the couple Lannister soldiers, everyone is wearing black. Like, winter has come, and the time for like colors and spring and happiness is gone.
Happiness is gone.
Like Cersei, Sansa, Daenerys, they're all wearing black gowns. These women were all wearing colorful ones, and were like very well known for that in earlier episodes of wearing these beautiful dresses. This is all war and clearly business here.
All right.
But I did think it was an incredible scene. I don't care that it took 7 minutes. I'm sorry, Gary. It was wonderful and moving.
Basically, suck it, Gary.
Anyone going to quote the last thing there?
Shall we get started?
Shall we get started?
I had also that, because I had that line, it's "Shall we begin?" is also what she had at the beginning when she returned to the Slaver's Bay, now the Bay of Dragons, Pyramid and Marine.
That ended well.
Like, she's talking with Tyrion, and Tyrion's like cowering, like, everything is fine. The city is really rebounded. And finally he stops talking and she says, "Shall we begin?" And she proceeds to, murder all the people in the bay and destroy the boats. Well, she doesn't murder the boats because she takes the boats. But she murders the leaders there. And that's what she says when she lands is, "Shall we begin?" And so she's, in my mind, going to repeat or look for some sort of aggressive move right off the bat.
Establish dominance early.
If you're landing, if you're making a beachhead anywhere. Yeah, well, if you're landing a beachhead anywhere, that's what you got to do. You got to take the offensive, take the, initiative.
Yeah. Take ground.
Completely random thing also. I was looking at the pictures this episode. I kind of forgot about them, but it does have a nice picture of the map that Cersei's having painted on the floor. Nice design choice for one thing, but it does show Dorne as like an entire country with like multiple cities in it. Which
Dorne is a city, Amanda.
That must be a misprint. That must be a misprint on the map.
Clearly, she needs to fire her little artist because clearly he screwed that up.
Yeah.
Just imagine everybody who comes to the capital from Dorne is like looking at the map going, what?
Don't understand.
All right. Anyone else have anything else they want to bring up before we wrap this episode up? Did we cover all of your secret points that you had? I'm guessing from everyone's blank faces and the slight head nods, we're good to go.
Good to go.
It's 4 conspiracy theories, so we're doing better.
I counted 5. I don't know which one of your 1.1s I counted, but
he rebuked one. One he actually shot holes in himself.
Maybe that's it because I decided it counted regardless.
Thanks for trying.
All right.
It's true. Conspiracies don't need to be logical.
So
that's probably the basis.
For next time, we are watching episode 2 from season 7 titled Stormborn. So we move slowly along in these final 12 hours left to go of Game of Thrones, and then it's all over.
The dog with a bone, sir.
Oh, I'm not going to let this go. All right, well, that'll do it for us here in this recording. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
You have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody. Keep conspiracizing.
Conspiracy!